Hello and welcome to another episode of the CEO Peak. I'm Dave Osh and my guest today is Paul Witkay, the CEO and founder of Alliance of Chief Executives. And the Alliance of Chief Executives bring together business leaders into safe, confidential environment where they can discuss the issues, the challenges, opportunities that they can discuss anywhere else. Hello, Paul, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Dave.
You know, it's funny. I must start with a story how we met each other, because that was after like 40 interviews of CEOs in the Bay Area.
Right.
I actually met 10% more. I think 4 or 5 people that I interviewed were members of the Alliance of Chief Executives. And then I said, what's going on here? Like what? You have 10% of all CEOs in the Bay Areas, and I realized that this is a very interesting and one of the members actually introduced us, and this is where we had. So I'm glad to have you on the show. I think it's a great opportunity not just to pick up your brain about what a CEO is doing in a company, because you grew this company from 1996 into what it is right now, around, I don't know, almost 400 members in the Bay Area?
Thereabouts.
Yeah, and also you're helping other CEOs. So you have also insights into the world of CEOs of companies here in Northern California. So I'm glad to have you here and thank you for taking the time of your busy schedule to be with us today. So Paul, actually we had a great 2 hours lunch 2 weeks ago where we planned to do this video and we just drifted in a 2-hour conversation. And I was fascinated of the fact that you started your career as a chemical engineer and found yourself in completely different business that you founded. So what was this shift? What triggered the shift? What was the aha moment that created this company here?
It's a longer story, but I'll try to keep it to just a manageable story. But I quickly found that I didn't have engineering coursing through my veins. I could solve the problems, and they were interesting, but I've always enjoyed seeing how the world works on a very macro level. I see the world like a billion-piece jigsaw puzzle, and they all fit together. And just solving one little problem really wasn't that fascinating to me. So when I look back at my career, everything I did enabled me to do what I do today and have the privilege of doing today. But the chain of events that caused me to start the Alliance in '96 really started in 1991. I was an executive with Air Liquide, $7 billion French industrial gas company at that time. And I was named head of strategy back in '91. '91 was a down year in the economy. We were doing $1 billion that we had built the company through a ton of acquisitions. Chairman in Paris thought we should be making a little more money, and so he named me head of strategy. And it was an incredible educational experience. The results of the reorganization were amazing, and I got to work with some incredible people. But it also told me this is the beginning of the end for me there, because we had a sister company that we merged the two companies, and they were based in Houston. And we decided the headquarters should be in Houston instead of San Francisco for the US. And I really love the people in Houston, but we didn't want to live there. We've been out here for 40 years. And so I was named to run one of the healthcare companies, and all the business was on the West Coast. So it didn't make sense for me to move to Texas. So shortly after I joined that company, I was asked to join a group of CEOs of healthcare companies. Frankly, it was a total no-brainer. I have always learned from other people. I'm not one to reinvent the wheel, and I needed to get up to speed on healthcare. So I went to the first meeting of this group, and I literally fell in love with it. I went home that night, told my wife, said, man, I'd love to do that every day. There was 8 guys sitting around the table. They're all smarter than me. And they humored me by asking my opinion, and it was like being back in business school doing high-level Harvard case study type strategic thinking, and it was real. It was no politics. And I told my wife, said, man, I love to do that every day. It's strategic, it's challenging. And she did have a piece of advice. She said, well, don't be stupid. Don't quit tomorrow. We got 2 kids now. And so I stayed with the healthcare company, built it up a little bit, put in systems, got it accredited, made some acquisitions. We printed it up. It wasn't core business, so we sold it in '96. And they asked me to go to Houston, and I said, no, thank you. And I started up the Alliance. And it's just been an incredible journey since then. I'm just blessed to be able to work with some of the people that are truly changing the world. And I have the privileges to get to know them personally and work with them strategically and bring them together with other CEOs that force them to think deeper and think differently.
So that's an amazing journey, actually, because it's so different from where you started. But this kind of aha moment, being part of a peer group of a group of people, and I said, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. That's it.
Well, frankly, I have yet to meet the CEO whose path was linear, and you're a great example. Your journey has been quite non-linear to get from growing up in Israel and the journey you had with different companies and around the world in Asia and now here in Silicon Valley. So frankly, you're an example of just how interesting the journeys are.
So what you learned first, before we move to what you learned from other CEOs, whom you work with, what you learned through this journey as a CEO since founding the company, what was the big lessons that you wish you knew before you started?
Well, first of all, it's not easy getting 2 CEOs in the same place at the same time. They're so incredibly busy. When they do come together, it's like magic. But getting them together at the same place at the same time is very difficult. But what did I learn? I've never really looked at the Alliance as a business. It's not like, I mean, I always had a strategy for a $1 billion company. That was strategy of how you compete in classical business strategy and how we reinvent the business model and such. The Alliance for me has always been more of a passion and a community and creating an environment where it's really high level, really deep strategic thinking. But I frankly have done it just because that's what I enjoy doing and the people I enjoy hanging around, and I believe they make an incredible impact on the world. And if we can bring them together in a way that helps them think sharper, deeper, more originally, more creatively, and get things done faster and more efficiently, I think we've made some contribution. But it's always been more of a community, and to the benefit of the members, yes, we have to be able to be sustainable and financially sustainable, and we're 100% member supported. So I'm just blessed to have some wonderful people that get to deal that believe in the community and believe in learning from others and challenging each other.
So I'm sure there are synergies, right? When you work with other CEOs, you learn from them too. Every CEO that I meet with, I learn from. So in these interactions that you have, what was the impact on your personal development as a leader?
Oh, that'd be hard to find because I frankly, I'm not sure I've ever had a truly creative idea in my life I didn't borrow or steal from someone else. And many from our members just listening to what they do. I mean, one of our members was the founder of Wheelworks. And he's still a member, and his second business is Clickaway. And he had a culture he built of really rewarding his people internally and having, and an awful lot of the profits were shared among all the managers and the people. And, that's one thing I stole from, his philosophy. There's countless things of learnings, whether it's business practices or strategies that you just pick up hanging around really smart people.
And don't you feel that there's one thing that was like the biggest actually leapfrog that you did in terms of your personal development as a leader yourself? Among all the thousands of things that you heard from other CEOs
Well, probably the one that had the biggest impact on me in enabling me to be the founder of the Alliance was that time as head of strategy for Air Liquide, where I did have the experience of really looking at it from a pure strategic level. How do we transform the business? How do we make more money? How do we really reinvent the business from being a technology and product-oriented business to a customer and market-focused business, starting to think backwards. And that had a big impact. So, and that and my business education and the market and the industry that Air Liquide was in was virtually every industry. Industrial gas goes in every industry. We're in 140 countries. So it offered me the opportunity to get behind the scenes with customers across markets, across geographies of all sizes. And so it was a great learning experience. And I think it afforded me at least the confidence that I could have a meaningful strategic dialogue with a CEO of a global public company or a small mom and pop that's just doing really great work in a very smaller scale. Either way, I'm inspired by people who lead companies because it is not easy.
Yeah. You mentioned actually that you have those CEOs that want to make an impact, right? So I see it as a ripple effect. What you're doing here and what the CEOs that comes together is like a ripple effect. Each one of them has impact on their communities, customers, employees, right? And this is the way that you have an impact and change the world. And did you see the differences in industries? Because I know a lot of CEOs that want to meet other CEOs from the same industry, but you bring together regardless of industry. You are like indifferent for industries, right?
No, I'm not indifferent at all. We're very intentionally designed to enable the power of diversity to work, and diversity from all levels. Different industries, different markets, different business models, different skill sets. Somebody came up through engineering like myself, or sales, or marketing, or finance, or operations, or legal. We think differently, we solve problems differently. Then you take people from all around the world who grow up in different circumstances and they look at life differently. And you take in different genders. And it's just, I learned so much more. And I believe we get so many more creative ideas when we're dealing with people who are more different from us. And it actually lubricates the conversation. When you're dealing with somebody that's doing something totally different, now as a rookie, as a naive outsider, you get just to be totally curious about how does it really work, and why the customers are customers, and who they compete with, and what their business model is, and their strategy. And there's almost always some learning in there that you can adopt or steal or think differently. But if you deal only with people in your own industry, it's how every industry today has gotten in trouble. Whether it's you take the auto industry, and if all you talk about is trying to sell more autos every year, eventually the market matures. It becomes and there's only so many garages, only so many cars that can go in those things, and you've got competitors like Uber and Lyft and Google and Apple creating a whole new different way of looking at not cars but at mobility. How do people get around, or even if do they even need to get around, versus the new work environments and work strategies. So you really, if we're going to provide the most value to our customers on what they really need, we need to be forced to think differently. And I know no better way than to be dealing with people who think very differently from me, grew up differently from me, solve problems different from me, but they look at the same type of universal challenge or problem or opportunity, and they look at it from a different way. And now there's the opportunity to have some really original thinking.
Absolutely. You learn much more from people from other industries than your own industry, right?
Well, in different countries, different from everything. It's just even the same industry, but the finance people look at it different from the marketing people, look at it different from the customer support people. So just different ways of looking even at the same company within the same industry. But the more diversity, the better. And so we intentionally designed to have people who think differently and are forced to interact with people that they don't have the opportunity on a regular basis. And then the methodology for how we have them, how our members speak to each other, and the questions we ask, and how we address challenges is a way to force that original thinking.
You know, I attended before CEO groups, and I found that you need quite maturity and vulnerability to share your to share your toughest challenges and to be vulnerable to share your weaknesses sometimes and admit that you don't know it all. So what other characteristics you see in CEOs that bring them to be able to be part of a CEO group, and what qualities that they can take back to their corporations from just from sitting with other people and being vulnerable?
Well, from the first time I started meeting CEOs to determine whether they'd be a good fit for our alliance community or not, I saw immediately that, first of all, CEOs are just human beings like all the rest of us. They have their own hopes and dreams, they have strengths and weaknesses. And frankly, at the CEO level, once they got to that stage, number one, it is a lonely job. They really don't have peers. They've got a board they got to report to. They've got executives that may report to them and such. But ultimately, whatever decisions, even if they decide how to decide, they're the decision maker. So it is actually a lonely job. And so frankly, if they can find somebody that they respect and trust, they need to talk about things, because that's how we even challenge ourselves. Challenge our own assumptions, to have somebody as a sounding board, as a sparring partner intellectually. And at executive levels and going up through organizations, you have you have your peers within organizations. At CEO level, you don't know, everybody you talk to is either an employee, a customer, a board member, an investor, somebody that has some bias that's towards the company. So you never know if you're getting the absolute candid truth, or whether you're getting what people want to tell you or want you to hear. And so to have the ability to talk to somebody that clearly doesn't have any bias, no axe to grind, and is as open as possible and running a company themselves, it's really refreshing. We're not a therapy support group, but to be able to talk openly, honestly about the things that you're dealing with, is really therapeutic. Now we keep, generally keep it on the very strategic level, but those are, making tough decisions. It's going to affect people's lives and their jobs, whether you're successful or not, by going what speed you're going at and what direction, and making good decisions that creates more jobs rather than less. It's a stressful job. So be able to talk to others that share that challenge and be able to think creatively and create fresh approaches to it is fun and refreshing and hopefully very, very valuable.
Yeah. So before we wrap it up, I'd like to ask you if there is any book or talk that you heard that had a major impact on you, that you remember, oh, this is a book I recommend to a CEO.
Wow, how long do you list? I've read hundreds and hundreds of books. I'm a voracious reader, and whether it's some of our favorite authors, Jeffrey Moore for strategy and particularly for tech marketing, to Thomas Friedman of his classic book of The World is Flat, and Thank You for Being Late is his recent book, is a great book on kind of looking at how the entire world is converging between the technologies and geopolitical and cultural shifts. There's too many. A good friend is Patrick Lencioni, who's written a ton of great books, both for CEOs and 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and how to build healthy organizations. There's too many to mention, but I could probably send you.
You mentioned already a few.
If you look at my bookshelves out there, there's probably a couple hundred books those are the favorite ones I've got. I read a lot about how to think creatively, how innovators innovate, how leaders lead, so I'm always looking for those better ideas on how to be better leaders, better strategic thinkers, more visionary about where the future is going. Those are the things that I really try to pay attention to.
Great. So Paul, thank you so much for your time. and really had a great time to discuss with you. And thank you for sharing it with our audience. And thank you for watching the show. And I'm looking forward to see you in the next episode.